Hi, and welcome to the Mental Health Raw and Open podcast. I'm your host, Jody, and I created this show to have honest, candid conversations about mental health in an effort to help reduce the stigma. I am issuing a trigger warning as many of the topics we discuss may be highly sensitive for some. If you are having suicidal thoughts, please reach out to someone, go to your local hospital, or call a crisis line. In the United States, call 1-800-273-8255, or in Canada, 1-833-456-4566. On today's show, we'll be talking with a dear friend of mine, Matt Pappas. Matt is a survivor, he is an author, he is a podcast host, he is a certified life coach, and he's doing fantastic work with the new CPTSD Foundation. Welcome to the show, Matt. How are you?
What's up, Jody? How are you?
I'm good, man. How are you doing?
I am chilling and glad to be here for your new podcast.
I know, I'm so excited. This is
I
so
know,
weird.
right? Like, it's so exciting for you to be launching a show because you're going to have so many amazing guests. And I mean, your story in and of itself is incredible. So
Thank you. I just, I figured it was probably the next step in progression from writing because I definitely was not ready for any sort of vlogging or YouTube anything. So I figured this would be my next best.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Podcasting is a great outlet. It allows you to give yourself a voice, to talk to a lot of people, to reach people on a platform that's easily accessible.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, the more that we can use our voice to talk about the things we're passionate about, that's really what it's all about. I mean, that's why you started your show. That's why I started mine years ago. That's why.
Yeah. How long has yours been going for now? It's quite a while. You've got tons of episodes.
Yeah. I just recorded my 146th the other day.
Congrats. That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I started in the middle of 2016 officially is when I kind of launched it. I mean, I had been podcasting for years before that on, not on the mental health side, but on other things. So I decided to take my blog to the next level, much like you're doing now, and get back into podcasting. And it's been a fun journey. I've had the pleasure of talking to amazing survivors and advocates and bloggers and clinicians and coaches and authors and people who have done amazing things and overcome just the most imaginable, horrifying experiences ever. And they're using their story now, sometimes, in some cases, their work, their blog, their podcasting, whatever it is, to use their voice to help inspire others. So I've had the extreme pleasure of talking to a lot of people. Many are regular guests that come on the show, and we do series on things. So it's a really great way to kind of connect with people and really give them a platform because, my show is all about really giving somebody a platform to share their story or their message or whatever. So yeah, I find it it's a very rewarding thing to do. And it's a nice way to get your message out.
It is too. And it's a little more of you feel like a personal relationship, almost like a connection with your guests more than if you're just blogging or emailing or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, you definitely do. I mean, once people get to a platform or once people have an opportunity to share their voice and they kind of really get going, you can just really hear the passion and what they've overcome and how much they want to help people and share their story. And so, the more that I can really help give them a voice and in some cases, some of the people who have been on my show have never shared their story ever, or they've shared it very, very infrequently. And so they're getting into podcasting because it's such a great way to really explain yourself in your own way. I mean, there's something special about being on a podcast and telling your story in your own voice that really just kind of connects with people. Blogging is amazing and writing is awesome, and I'm a huge advocate of it. I do it all the time. It's how I really started my own healing journey. But I think there's a lot to be said for being able to express yourself in your own voice, using your own words. You can hear the passion, you can hear, the concern, you can hear the joy of the things you've worked through and the struggles and everything. So I really enjoyed, and I'm super excited for your show.
Thank you. I find it's also a sense of validation on both ends.
Yeah, it definitely is, because there's the power of the human voice and having the human voice and being able to connect with somebody on a level where they understand and they support you and there's no judgment and they get it. That's really, really helpful. And it really encourages people to maybe continue sharing their story and taking their advocacy work to the next level if they decide to do that. So it's a great way to get validation because, let's face it, whether you've been healing for a week, a month, 10 years, 20 years, you can always use some validation and support when stuff gets rough.
Absolutely. That you can never say anyone, all people, mental health issues or not. There just needs to be more support and validation in the world, period.
Oh, indeed. And when you validate somebody and you acknowledge their struggles and, there's no judgment, there's no shame. It's just, yes, I know what you're saying. I've been there or I've experienced something similar. Just hearing that just kind of gives you that little bit of a boost. boost that you sometimes need when, shit gets really real and you're just like, oh my God, I can't do this anymore. Or so overwhelmed, or, where in the hell did this trigger come from that I dealt with so long ago and now it's back? All that kind of stuff. When you talk to people that get it, it makes it not quite as difficult to deal with, right? I mean, it's not that, that the trigger really goes away or anything, but when like I always say with clients and on my own show, when you get stuff out of your head, it doesn't seem so overwhelming and overbearing.
Exactly. I even tell people, like, if you have to write it on a napkin, if you wake up in the middle of the night to get some shit out, go right ahead. Just get it out however you can. Record your voice, go on a podcast, whatever you're most comfortable with. I've even for this podcast, I've even said to some people who are not quite comfortable with sharing themselves, but they want to share their story. So if they just give their story to me in a rough outline, and then I can tell it for them until they're ready to claim it themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's no wrong way to tell your story, right? And whether you use your own voice in your typing, or whether you do arts and crafts, or you do coloring, or you do blogging, or you do podcasting, or whatever, the key is to be able to come to a point when you're ready to be able to share it and get that stuff out of your head, so if you can process it, it's not so overwhelming. Because when things live in your emotional mind, they just run around and around, and you overthink and you ruminate, and you just, it keeps you up at night, and it affects your energy, it affects your relationships, it affects your eating habits, everything. So when you can just get it out and be like, oh, I expressed it. It's still difficult, but now I don't feel quite as overwhelmed, or more importantly, I don't feel so alone.
Yeah, it's like kind of like you've been carrying a weighted backpack your whole life, and then someone takes a rock out of it for you. There's a little bit of lightness, I find.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And anytime you can lighten the burden of this journey of all the crap that we've been carrying on, it's all the better. Because even if someone who's been healing for years and years, and you've worked through a whole lot of stuff, and you generally feel pretty good on a regular basis, you still got those times where things come back and that backpack gets a little bit heavier now and then. You're like, oh, wait a minute, where'd this come from?
Yeah.
And so being able to lighten the load now and then, or know what to do when that load gets heavier again, is huge.
How have you been feeling lately? You struggle sometimes with depression and, I believe, PTSD?
Yeah, I'm a survivor of childhood sexual abuse between the ages of 5 and 10, bullying in late elementary and all through middle school, and emotional neglect. So I worked through a lot of stuff with a therapist, a lot of stuff with a trauma-informed coach. Of course, done my own healing. I've read a lot of books, watched a lot of videos, done a lot of writing, done a lot of sandbox therapy, which was really helpful. Like I said, read a lot of books, did a lot of my own research, and really just sharing my story has been the biggest freeing part of it, because I do still struggle. Like sometimes I just feel down, and I feel, like depression can kind of creep in, or feel anxious feelings coming back up, and I got to kind of take, some of my own medicine, or practice what I preach, or whatever analogy you want to say, to be like, hey, wait a minute, where's this coming from? What's anxiety trying to tell me? Why am I feeling depressed? Where's that coming from? Did I have a trigger recently? What changes are going on in my life? And taking stock of where I am and being able to make adjustments in my life is a huge part of it. Having the wherewithal to dial back when I need to and not feel bad about it, and know that putting my own mental health first, my own physical health first, my own recovery in general first, is not an act of selfishness, but it's an act of self-care and compassion. And so it took me a long time to get there, but hey, I still struggle with it. I mean, we talk about this healing journey. The healing journey is not a destination. Like, you don't wake up one day and say, I'm healed, and everything's great.
It's lifelong.
I really believe it's a very lifelong thing. It's an ongoing process of understanding, of learning about yourself, of filling up your survivor toolbox with skills and awareness, and knowing your limits, and self-care, and taking care of yourself, and healthy boundaries, and all the stuff that goes with it, and learning how to manage and overcome what's happening. But understand that when you're traumatized, it doesn't leave you. Like, you don't just randomly wake up after years of healing and say, okay, this is not me anymore. No, it's still part of you, but you've learned how to manage it. You've learned how to not let it run your life anymore. You've got coping skills, but it's going to be there. It's part of who you are, but it doesn't have to run your life. And that's really a big part of what healing is. It's learning what your particular symptoms and triggers and best strategies are, and what boundaries you need to keep up, and how much you need to take care of yourself, and being very in tune with what your mind and your body's telling you is huge. And that just comes with experience and time.
Absolutely. And I know that you sharing your story has inspired so many other people, especially men, obviously have a more difficult time in general speaking about stuff. So when it comes down to trauma or childhood sexual assault, anything like that, it helps to have more voices out there that are male, more male stories out there, so that the stigma, which is still high everywhere, but it's higher with men.
Yeah, I mean, I've covered this many times on my podcast and on some of the episodes I do with some colleagues. We do a mental health megacast about once a quarter with an advocate and a podcaster who lives in the UK, Mike Douglas, and one who lives out in Arizona, Wes. They both have podcasts, and we get together and talk about mental health from a guy's perspective and the struggles and what it's like. And of course, between all of us and everybody out there that writes or shares their story or does a video or whatever, the more voices you can bring, the more we can inspire, not only guys, but everybody, that the struggle is, for a lack of a better term, the struggle is indeed real and it's ongoing. The more voices, the more validation you have, the more you can really inspire people to not be ashamed. And, whether or not we inspire people to ever start their own podcast or start their own blog, I mean, that's great if we do. But more importantly, we want to inspire people to reach out for help, to know they're not alone, to seek the help of a therapist or a coach or a support group, whatever they feel is best for them, so that, you don't have to feel like you're alone, because that's one of the biggest things about being a survivor of anything or living with any kind of mental health struggle or challenge, is feeling like you're alone all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Even when you're like in solitude or in a group of people, you can still feel the exact same alone.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you can feel alone in a sea of people because you feel like everybody's looking at you. You feel like, nobody understands what you're going through. Nobody understands why you were invited to that party and you had to leave early, or, you didn't show up because inside you felt triggered, or you had a rough day, or you had something hit you and you had to do some self-care. Not everybody gets that. So surround yourself with people that do get it. It helps you to kind of learn that if people don't get it, that's okay. It doesn't mean you're broken. It just means that they don't get it, and they may not need to get it, because it's your story. It's your life. You run your life and tell your story the way you want to. And if that means that sometimes you can't do some certain things, or you have to dial back, or, maybe, whatever the case is, you be okay with your own journey the way that it is, and your life the way that it is. And doesn't mean that you're broken. It just means you have to adapt a little bit.
Absolutely. I feel somewhat transparent sometimes. Feel like sometimes when I'm out that everyone can see how I feel about myself. So therefore they must feel the same. So then you project your feelings onto them when really they're just walking down the street. Nothing to do with you whatsoever.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. We oftentimes project our stuff on other people, either knowingly or unknowingly. Sometimes we say things that we wish we wouldn't have said. Maybe we trusted somebody a little too soon, or maybe we just think people can see right through us. Like when you're walking down the street, that's a big thing about anxiety too, is when you're walking down the street, or you're in a grocery store, you're in a shopping mall, or whatever it is you're doing, you think everybody's looking at you.
Oh, yeah.
You think that they're looking at you because of the clothes you wear, or what's in your shopping cart, or, what kind of credit card you're carrying, or what kind of car you drive. When in reality, most of the people in this world, 99% of the time, aren't even looking at you. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? It doesn't mean that you're insignificant. It means that the anxiety is trying to tell you that people are judging you, when in reality, they're really not. People are, out doing their own things. Most times in this day and age, everybody's buried in their phones as it is. And so when you walk outside and you walk down the street and you hear that little voice saying that, oh my God, they're looking at me, or, oh, they're thinking about me, or, oh, they must think I suck because I don't drive a nice car, or I wear old clothes, or I'm buying stuff off the rack, or whatever it is. It's none of that. Or you think maybe, you're having a bad day, and they can see that you are somebody who lives with depression or anxiety or complex trauma, when in reality, they really honestly usually can't. And that kind of little reassurance can sometimes help you to just take that little step out and be a little bit more confident, and know that you can go out and live your daily life and people aren't really judging you. And you know what? If they do judge you, then the hell with them, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, they don't know what you've been through. You don't know what they've been through. So if people judge you, that's on them. That's not a reflection of you.
And God knows we judge ourselves enough, so we don't need any help from others.
Oh my God, yeah, we are our own worst critic.
Absolutely.
We judge ourselves every day for the way we look, the way we act, everything. So yeah, you're right.
Now you do so much, I don't even know where to start. You do coaching and you do something with the PTSD Foundation, and you've got books going on. What the hell? How do you have time for everything?
Well, I don't really know. I really have no idea. And I'm actually, it's a bit of a juggling act at times. And honestly, like right now, I'm in the process of kind of making sure that my priorities in place and that I have enough time to do that stuff and take care of myself. I'm also, on top of all that, I'm a survivor of Guillain-Barré syndrome, which I got in January 2018.
Yeah, that was awful, dude.
Yeah, and so that's something that there is no cure, but it's something where it affects your energy, your fatigue levels, it affects your appetite, it affects your mental mental health state. It affects all, it affects just your balance. I mean, all different types of things. So you have the physical and emotional aspects of that, that I have to manage. And I'm still learning too, because up until I got sick last January in 2018, I was never in the hospital ever. The worst I ever got was the flu. So for me, it was a wake-up call of holy crap. And so I've had to adjust myself and my schedule and priorities a bit. And, as you said, I do the podcast. We record once or twice a week, usually twice a week now. I am the director of operations and for CPTSD Foundation, which supports research for complex trauma. We do calls 7 days a week, 365 days a year.
You know what? I saw that, and fantastic idea. It really is.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, nobody else is doing it. But it's something that, like, if you think about it, we are here on a live coaching platform where our members can call in. And, very, very similar to what we're doing here now on Zoom. And, we just talk about different aspects of healing and different struggles with depression and anxiety and dissociation and struggles with emotions and healthy boundaries and all different types of stuff that we cover. But we show up every single day and for 45 minutes, and people have access. They share, they give support, they receive support, they ask questions, we validate, we teach, we listen. It's a great thing for people to come and go. And, the great thing is you can show up as little or as often as you want. You can interact as little or as much as you want, but we are there because so often, so many people that you interact with on your show and in your blog and in your social media, same with me, they are or were active in therapy or working with a coach. And so oftentimes you feel alone in between therapy sessions. I mean, I don't care if you're going to therapy 3 times a week or 4 times a week, you still got times when you are left to your own devices. You are alone, you're at home, you are out and about trying to live life, and you're like, oh my God, can you feel safe in your therapist office or on your coaching call or whatever? Mm-hmm. But when you get out of there, you're like, oh my God, now what do I do? And you have questions and things you want to do, and you can only have access to a therapist or a coach for so often because of any number of reasons. So we are here to be a source of support in between all of those sessions, to show up and to give people an opportunity to not feel alone, to ask questions, to be a source of support working in tandem with your therapist or your coach and validating the things that they are teaching and helping you with. We also do those same kinds of things. So while we're not therapy, we are support to help people who need it. The group is extremely safe. Everybody who shows up is a survivor on some level. Some of them are just starting out. Some of them have been healing for years. Some are somewhere right in the middle, and so it's a very safe place. There is zero judgment. There is nothing but total validation, zero tolerance policy for any kind of abuse or anything. So people can show up and know that they're accepted, that they're validated, that they're welcomed, and that people care. It's a big thing, right? I mean, it's not always so much the strategies we teach or, the stuff that we share or whatever, but it's just about that feeling of being in a safe place with other people who get it is probably the biggest part of it.
Absolutely. And to feel heard is different than being listened to.
Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when you feel heard, you suddenly feel validated. And when you feel validated, you feel encouraged. And when you feel encouraged, you feel motivated to keep moving, to keep healing, to keep trying, to keep going. Right. I mean, we have people that join the calls that struggle every single day to really leave the house. We have other people who, have careers, but they still struggle with different aspects of their healing. So when people come and they know that they can vent or they can share and they can cry and they can laugh and they can do whatever to get the stuff out of their head and to get some validation and some perspective and maybe some new tools, or just, if nothing else, to get like a virtual safe hug, it's freaking huge. It's huge.
Absolutely. And I commend you, and I believe Athena, for both of your efforts, if I'm right.
Yeah. Athena is the founder of it. The CPTSD Foundation was her vision for a long time. So it officially started in 2018, and we've been doing the daily calls for just over a year now. And so we're coming on board. Yeah, it's really amazing. So the resources we have, we have a healing book club now that meets once a week where they read trauma-informed resources, but a newsletter starting. So there's lots of stuff, but it's all about helping people in the way that we wish we would have been helped when we were in our early healing stages. Like, that's really what it's about, is what would we have wanted during those stages. And so, we'd always take feedback from people. We do surveys. We try and figure out, what is it you need? What are you looking for that we can help provide or give you access to or something? So it's really, it's about providing that support to people who need it, and that validation that, you're not alone and you can show up every day. And, even Christmas Day, Thanksgiving Day, New Year's Day, we are there. Somebody's there to listen, to lead a call, to chat, to whatever you want to do.
That's amazing. That's awesome.
Well, yeah, and that's the key, right? Like your experience of learning how to manage it, everything you've learned about yourself, all the struggles you have now, all the triumphs you have now, everything you've overcome, that's going to help you as you launch this endeavor because you've got the firsthand experience, right? Like it's one thing to work with a therapist or a coach or a clinician of some type or a professional who has the educational experience, and that's extremely important. I would never minimize that ever. It's exponentially essential for healing, but it's also important to have those kinds of real life lived experience. So when somebody says, I'm feeling like this, you probably know exactly what it is they're feeling. And you can say, I was there. This is what I felt like. This is how I dealt with it. This is how long it lasted. This is blah, 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 all the different types of things. So when you have that lived experience, it gives you the kind of the benefits of both worlds, really.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because I think it's a matter of almost compassion versus empathy. If you haven't felt it, you can feel compassionate for somebody, but you can't feel what they feel unless you've actually been there.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, and even though, what they feel is always going to be different than what you have that point of reference as to, yes, I know what this feels like. This is what it felt like for me. And give them, one of the biggest things in healing is to get perspective, right? Not only do you not feel alone, but getting the perspective of somebody who's been there so they can give you an alternative point of view, an alternative way to look at it, right?
Mm-hmm.
A way to reframe it, a way to say, hey, you know what? I've been struggling with this right now for the last X number of years, whatever it is, and I'm still here. I'm still going. This is how I manage it. Here are some tips and strategies. Maybe some of these will work for you. Let's explore. Let's work through it together. Let's figure it out. And giving them that kind of perspective and also that hope that, hey, Jody has been dealing with this for how long? She's still fighting. She's not giving up. Maybe that's going to help encourage me when I feel like I want to give up.
Yeah, absolutely. I hear you on that. The power of human connection when it comes to mental health is like so important. It really is essential for healing. As you said, like you go to a therapist, let's say, honestly, most people probably can't afford therapy more than once a week. If you can, then you're pretty lucky. I can only afford to go once every 2 weeks. So that's a lot of time in between that's just completely like unmonitored. Like you feel like you're just almost abandoned and you want to hold all this shit in until your next therapy session. But that happens to be 13 days away.
Yep. And that's one of the main reasons why, we started the foundation. And that's why the reasons why so many amazing groups are out there, groups like, the Samaritans and 1in6.org and all these amazing people who are just, who give you a place to come to online or to call in or to text and to be able to just connect with a person on some kind of interactive level just to help you get through. Because you're right. Feelings of abandonment creep up. Like for me, when I was in deep therapy work, the second I walked out of that therapy door and got in my car, I felt abandoned. And of course, it wasn't that my therapist was intentionally doing it, but survivor things, one of the biggest things we deal with is feeling abandoned. And so when you're left to your own thoughts and and having to deal with life and whatever that is for you for the next 6 days or the next 13 days to another session, and that's incredibly scary. It's overwhelming. And while writing and doing art therapy and crafts and all the things and that you do, that you have at your disposal and in your survivor toolbox is good, having that support of the survivor community in some way is gigantic. I mean, I found so much help when I first realized I was a survivor, which, I often tell a little story that it's a joke of, until I was a survivor, I thought that word was only a TV show, right? And so, right. But once I realized that I was a survivor, I'm like, what does that mean? Oh my God, there's a whole community of people, millions and millions of people all over the world who tens of millions, hundreds of millions who have been through some kind of trauma in their life. 1 in 4 girls, 1 in 6 boys, all this kind of stuff that we know these stats, that the survivor community is out there and people are looking for help. They're coming together in Facebook groups, on Twitter chats, in support groups of all different shapes and sizes, and coming together and just sharing their story and helping people not feel alone.
Yeah, I was talking with another lady the other day about suicide, and she said, nobody really has to be qualified to deal with someone who is on suicidal mood or thinking of suicidal thoughts. You need to listen. Really just listen, ask little questions. How can I help? Tell me more. If people are reaching out already, they're looking for some sort of support, right? It's easy to hold a hand and keep your mouth shut.
Yeah, yeah, and that's exactly right. I mean, I did a podcast with somebody who is an amazing advocate. She goes by the handle Bipolar Barbie, Instagram and Twitter and everything. She's amazing. But, she told a story of many times sitting out on a park bench or on the steps of some building somewhere, or being downtown and just wishing somebody would come up and, not having all the right words to say, not offering to fix them or give them some kind of remedy, but just sit there and say, hey, I'll hang out with you. I'll listen. I'll be a voice. I'll be a sounding board to just let you get whatever you need to get off of your chest, and to just approach it that way of just, not mean to fix, but just there to listen. And that sometimes can really sometimes that's all you need.
Absolutely. Tell me about, you got books going on too, no?
Yeah, well, I wrote a book a couple of years ago called Surviving Grief. It's a free download. You can find it on any of my websites. And it's really learning about grieving your lost childhood, grieving what you lost as a survivor and because of the abuse that you experienced. And so I call it Surviving Grief because I never knew I had to grieve my past. And again, before I got into the world of being a survivor and in the world of mental health and all this stuff, I had no reference for any of this other than, Survivor being a TV show, and grieving was only what you did when somebody died.
Yes.
Or when a pet passed away. When I learned you have to grieve your childhood and your lost innocence, a whole world opened up to me. And so I was writing blog posts about it. I made that ebook that's available for free. And when you download it, you also get a free audio copy that is narrated by me. So
what's your website?
Well, you can find it on my original blog, which is called Surviving My Past. Just Google it. It's the top one. You can also find it on beyondyourpast.com. Either one of those places, or just search for Surviving Grief ebook. You'll find it. It's free for everybody. You can download it onto your phone or your tablet or whatever. And because, it's just about, what does it mean to grieve my past? What does it mean to bargain? What does it mean to feel depressed? What does it mean to be angry and to be in denial and to have acceptance? All these kinds of things. And, what does it mean to go through that grieving process over and over and in different stages again? And so, I'm also in the process of writing a collaborative survivor storybook, right now that we are currently gathering stories for. And we only need a couple of more yet before we can finish up and send it to a publisher, to edit and all that stuff. So
awesome. I believe I collaborated with you on that.
You absolutely did. Yes, you did.
I think I have a screener. I'm not sure, but I think.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And I mean, the blog post that you wrote for Surviving My Past, well, that had to be over a year and a half now, I guess, at least. Maybe even 2 years ago you wrote that. Is just still gets so many views because talking about, where your safe place was and the things you dealt with and just all these kinds of things, right? Like using your story in any way, whether it's in a book or a blog or whatever. The important thing is getting your story out there. So that's why we're doing this book of survivor stories and, why we do the stuff with the foundation and the podcast and the blog and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's all incredible. You do, honestly, so much. You've got it covered from every single angle.
Yeah, I mean, when I first learned, and like I said, when I started my healing, I really kind of immersed myself into it, almost to the point of overwhelm, right? Like I was living, eating, and breathing being a survivor. So I had to kind of find the middle ground of what I can do and where my passions are and where my talents are, where my skills are and what I can handle and kind of put my efforts in that direction. So I'm really definitely very involved in many aspects of it, but it's because it's a cause that I believe in. I made a lot of changes in my life. I continue to make changes. I continue to learn about myself. I enjoy working with clients and helping people learn about the ways that anxiety takes over their life and the lies that anxiety does and how we can work through it and the hope for beating anxiety and living the life you want to live. So all that kind of stuff is something I'm passionate about and I really truly enjoy doing.
Well, I think that's the key with life, I think very few people enjoy their job and that's where you spend most of your time and most of your brain energy. And I think if you can do something that you have a passion for, it's not really like work.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, it is something where when you're doing what you love, that helps keep you going during the tough days, right? Because for me to sit here and tell you everything is peachy keen, hunky-dory, it's not. Right.
No,
I still got my own crap and my own things I deal with and my struggles and all that. But I know that what I'm doing is good for my own healing journey. It's good to help other people. I enjoy inspiring others and teaching and sharing and validating and providing resources. I spent the first 40 some years of my life, just doing what I thought I was supposed to do, working a 9-to-5 job, doing the safe thing. I was in computers for 17 years. Before that, I was in warehouses and driving trucks and working in restaurants. So I've done a lot of things, but it wasn't until I realized I was a survivor and started healing around my early 40s that I'm like, hey, I think I really found my calling now. And I enjoyed what I did before. I enjoyed being an engineer. It served me for a long time. It was stable. It was secure, but it wasn't my life's goal. I wasn't passionate about it. I didn't love it. but it served me. And then I moved on, and just a couple of years ago, I left that job. Actually, no, I'm sorry. It's been a year. It's actually a year next month in July that I left that job and struck out on my own and said, hey, it's time for me to do something I really love, something I really want to enjoy. And I'm going to sink or swim, and I'm just going to put my best foot forward and not look back and not judge myself. And so, I'm learning along the way. I've been making changes and adjustments and learning about myself. But, the real key is it may have taken me 41 years to figure it out. Well, about 40 something years to figure it out, but I figured it out, and that's good. I mean, you're right. I mean, when you do something you love, it doesn't feel like work. It can still be difficult, but it helps carry you through those tough days.
Absolutely. If I can ask, was there like a specific trigger or something that brought those memories to surface at that age?
You mean like back when I first started working with?
Yeah, when you first started healing for your own healing journey.
Oh, yeah.
You didn't remember it. Obviously, I did the same thing. Like I blocked things out for a good 25 years, and then all of a sudden they come flooding back. Yeah,
I mean, mine started when my second marriage ended in divorce. And, I was married the first time very young, and that ended in divorce like not long after. And then I took some time to kind of heal and work through myself. I got married again, and then that one ended in divorce, unfortunately, in like 2013. And so I realized, you know what? At the time, I figured I'm broken. Something's wrong with me. I can't figure out why I can't, why my relationships keep ending. Why am I so busted? What's wrong? So I went to a therapist seeking help for like relationship problems and trying to figure out why I was broken. And I told her, I said, in like the first session, I said, I need you to fix me because I'm broken. And I said, and so, we obviously, started working through that. And for the first 6 months, it was all about relationships and dating and working through my own stuff and really, realizing that not everything was my fault the way I thought it was, and all the stuff you go through with a therapist. Then lo and behold, as we started to heal with that, I started to those memories started to resurface, and they started coming out in some writing assignments. And then in one writing assignment, when I was doing the Courage to Heal workbook, it came out, I wrote that I was a survivor of trauma. Now, she had known this because I was in my intake papers, but we didn't really talk about it because I wasn't ready to go there. But when I wrote about it, she knew that was something to latch onto. So we started diving into it more. I was ready then. And so it was really just opening myself up to healing in some way. And my brain was like, okay, you're healing your relationship stuff. Now we're going to heal the other stuff. I was just talking to somebody on podcast the other day that I recorded, and their healing journey started when they were healing from something completely different too. But they realized, oh, wait a minute, you know what? I'm feeling open now. I'm feeling confident. I'm feeling a little more secure and stable. And your brain's like, all right, let's go back and heal all that old crap that you never dealt with.
Yeah.
And so, your mind will tell you when it's ready. And then, that's when it's important to work with a professional to help you make sense of it. It's difficult to process. And believe me, I had many times when I just sat on that couch and holding those pillows and just sat there and hardly said anything. I was just overwhelmed and sad and just angry and all the kinds of things. So it was really seeking the help for something completely different, but ended up being related, as I found out later on.
But I'm so glad you're doing so well as you can be doing, and you're successful in all your endeavors, and you have beautiful kids I've seen pictures of before.
Yes. Yeah. My kids are amazing. My daughter's 24. She graduated with her bachelor's in nursing. She's an RN in labor and delivery. She loves it. She's married to a great guy. My middle son is an incredible photographer and artist. He works on a creative design team for, somebody here locally who has a big following on Instagram. And so,
Fantastic.
He's the artistic one, and, the really creative one. And then my youngest son is 17. He'll graduate next year. He's finding his way. He might be going to the Navy. So I've got like 3 awesome kids that I'm just super proud of.
Which one's Brady? Is he the youngest one or the middle one?
Brady is the middle one. He's the one that's all over social media.
Yeah. I saw he has, I don't know if he cut it or not, but he had incredible curls in his hair.
Yeah. Those are, he still has those.
Oh, does he? Good.
Yes, he does. He has incredible curls. That's a Greek thing. So he gets that from me.
Oh, that's your background? You're Greek?
Yeah. I am 50% Greek. Yes.
I did a DNA test not long ago, actually, just for the swelling that's been in my legs for a year that nobody could figure out. So this was like a last-ditch effort. So I did this DNA test, and it was quite interesting, the stuff that they come back with, because I did the medical side and the genetic side. So I'm like, I think 23% African and 60-something% Southern European, and then like 13 or 14% British.
Right. Wow. Yeah. I mean, I'm half Greek, and then I'm part German and part Irish, but I'm really like Greek is where if you see me, I'm Greek.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm proud of my heritage. My kids are proud of their heritage. They're really amazing. The older they get, even though they're kind of blossoming into their own endeavors, and they're not home as much anymore, and they're doing their own things, and they have their own lives. They bring a lot of joy, and I love hanging out with them and just doing all the stuff that you can as they get older and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure my mom passed when I was young, but it seems like a better relationship at that age because you're past, your parents are stupid and blah, 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 blah. And you kind of become,
right. Yeah.
Like your parents know nothing as far as until you're at least 19. They never had a childhood and they never did anything. So,
I know.
So it's good to be able to have that type of relationship. I think it's very healthy and commend you for being able to have that with your kids.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I love them to death. They're a great source of inspiration, and they encourage me in everything, and we have a good time. And I just get to hang out and be myself around them, so it's great.
That's awesome. Well, thank you, my friend. I'm going to have you on again because I'm sure we have plenty more to discuss. I know you have to.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, my friend. Anytime you want me to come on your show, I'd be happy to. We can talk about anxiety and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I'd love to. Absolutely.
Best of luck on your podcast. I will definitely subscribe and share it out. So be sure and tag me in your episodes.
Oh, I will for sure. I'm going to do some editing now that I have a bunch recorded. We have children's helpline up here. So I applied a while ago and I didn't hear anything back. And then out of the blue, they messaged me and said, go get a police background check. And if you pass that, then we're going to hire you. You just as a volunteer. So I just have to do a 6-week course. It'll start at the end of June. And then I commit to 1 week for a year, a 4-hour shift minimum. And all it is text crisis because so many kids don't want to speak anymore. It's so much easier for them to text. So I'm just going to respond on my computer. So I'm really kind of excited about that, which is why I'm taping so many podcasts ahead of time. And then I'm just going to release them. So I'm not overwhelmed while I'm taking that course.
Good planning. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, one thing about podcasting is when you get into it, it's very, very time consuming to put out, a quality product between editing and scheduling and recording. So yeah, do yourself a favor and definitely pace yourself because it can be a lot to juggle.
All right. Thank you so much, man. We will talk on Twitter very soon, I'm sure. But take care of yourself and have a fantastic day. And thank you again.
Anytime, Jody. Have a good one.
You too. Take care, Matt. Well, as we wrap up the show, I would like to give special thanks to our guest, Matt Pappas, for sharing his time and his story with us. If you enjoyed today's show, please make sure to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss another episode. If you have any comments or questions or wish to be a guest on the show, you can message me at OneLastKick71 on Twitter, JodyBBEE on Facebook, or through my website, jodybetty.com. Links can be found on the podcast website. Thank you for spending your time with us. Hopefully we can help to eliminate or at least reduce the stigma around mental health. Until next time, take care and be well.